Dear friends, welcome to another episode today in the military world. In this video, we will talk about another recent statement made by French President Emmanuel Macron, insisting on the eventual deployment of European troops to Ukraine, saying further that the fate of the entire European continent will be decided there. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe now and activate the notification bell to not miss any updates. On Thursday, May 2nd, a magazine published an interview with President Macron in which he said, among other things, that Europe is not immortal and that it could die as a consequence of Russian aggression against Ukraine. When asked if he was still willing to send soldiers to Ukraine, Macron said that in the face of an enemy that doesn't rule out any option, France and Europe also cannot rule anything out. He further stated that if Russia advances further and breaches Ukrainian lines, and if Kiev requests Western support in the form of soldiers, Europe should consider this request legitimate and analyze it from the existential perspective, not only of Ukraine, but of the entire European continent. Therefore, once again, Macron was not direct and explicit about sending soldiers to Ukraine, but he made it clear that he still sees it as a perfectly viable option in an extreme case, which would be in this specific case, the breaching of Ukrainian lines in the face of a major Russian offensive. In the interview, Macron described Russia as a power dedicated to destabilizing Europe, stating once again that his goal as president of France is to ensure that Russia does not win the war in Ukraine, as according to Macron, if Putin wins in Ukraine, he will not stop there and will continue advancing through other countries, plunging Europe into a new era of instability, chaos and war similar to the 1930s and 40s. Among all European leaders, the French president is always the most assertive in this position, having stated several times his certainty that if not stopped where he is fighting now, Europeans will inevitably have to go to war in the future. In his perception, a Russian victory in Ukraine would give Putin the momentum he needs to continue advancing through Europe, first through non-NATO member countries, but inevitably reaching NATO member countries such as Finland and the Baltic states. Macron's vision is shared by many American congressmen and senators who say that if Russia is not defeated where it is fighting now, which is in Ukraine, American soldiers will have to be sent to stop Russia in some non-NATO member country in the future. For these politicians, and for Macron in particular, it is much more practical and cheaper to confront Putin through the Ukrainians than to go to war within a few years against a strengthened Russia with resources from Ukraine. Macron's speech was followed by statements from David Cameron, British Defense Secretary, who promised during a visit to Kiev an annual military aid of £3 billion to Ukraine with no time limit. Cameron also stated that just as Russia attacks targets within Ukraine, Ukraine has the right to use its weapons to attack military targets within Russia. He explicitly stated that Ukraine has the permission of the United Kingdom to use British weapons in attacks against targets within Russia. As expected, these two statements were very poorly received by Russia, with Dmitry Peskov, spokesman for Vladimir Putin, strongly criticizing Macron's and Cameron's statements. Also, this week, on Monday, April 29th, Kiev received a visit from another important ally, with Jens Stoltenberg, Secretary General of NATO, visiting the Ukrainian capital. Taking advantage of the occasion, he scolded European alliance members, accusing them of failing to deliver on the promise to send to Ukraine 1 million artillery shells. Stoltenberg also criticized the 6-month delay in releasing the $60.8 billion American aid package to Ukraine, a delay that, according to Stoltenberg and several analysts, allowed Russia to advance in various sectors of the front line, with the lack of ammunition also allowing the Russians to concentrate a large number of troops and vehicles for what is expected to be a major Russian offensive, most likely against the city of Kyiv. The truth is that the current situation in Ukraine is definitely not easy, with Putin knowing that soon Ukrainian soldiers will have their stocks replenished with weapons and ammunition, pressing the lines with everything they have available to take advantage of the current moment of Ukrainian fragility. If Putin achieves what he intends and does indeed breach Ukrainian lines, the French president promised that if Ukraine asks for help, his country and Europe as a whole will not rule out the possibility of sending soldiers to war, all with the aim, according to Macron, of fighting Putin where he is now and not in some NATO member country.
Britain is not only one of the biggest supporters of Ukraine, diplomatically, economically, and crucially militarily, we're also one of the fastest. We were one of the first to provide weapons when this country was illegally attacked by Putin. We were the first to sign this new security partnership. And recently, we've been the first to announce a multi-year package of funding for Ukraine, including military support. That is £3 billion a year, not just this year and next year, but for as many years as Ukraine needs it. Why is it so important to do this? Well, it's important because Ukraine needs help now. They've done brilliantly on the Black Sea, sinking so much of Putin's Black Sea fleet, but there are challenges on land and they need to meet those challenges. It's also important to be fast because it gives us leverage. It gives us the ability to say to other countries, we're making that multi-year commitment, you should make that multi-year commitment too. Why does this all matter so much? Well, it matters crucially for this country, a sovereign country that was illegally invaded and they want their territorial integrity back. But it also matters for us. Ukrainian security is about European security, it's about British security. And as I see it, there are two futures here for us. One is we push back Putin, there's a just peace and this country recovers its sovereignty, and NATO will be stronger, Europe will be stronger, Britain will be stronger. But there is an alternative scenario where we don't back Ukraine sufficiently, where Putin scores a win here in Ukraine and we'll be living in a far more unsafe and uncertain and dangerous world that will cost us in so many ways. So the investment we're making today in Ukraine's security is the best possible investment we could make in our own security and our own prosperity. And that's why I'm so passionate about getting this right.